Have you heard about a diamond star that could put all the riches on Earth to shame? Or how about twinkling stars with surfaces made of solid iron? So let's take a look at these weird stars and try to unravel their mysteries. There's a star in the Centaurus constellation that was nicknamed Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yes, it was named after a Beatles song, because it basically is a Beatles song. You see, the star was discovered to have a massive diamond at its core. Now, you may be wondering how big this diamond really is. Well, it's estimated to be about 10 billion trillion carats. That's a 1 followed by 34 zeros. To put that into perspective, the Hope Diamond, which is one of the largest diamonds on Earth, is a measly 45.5 carats in comparison. Can you imagine the size of the ring you could make with this star diamond? And it's about the same mass as our sun. But don't get too excited about the prospect of owning this diamond just yet. Even if you were Jeff Bezos, you wouldn't be able to afford it. According to Ronald Winston, CEO of Harry Winston Inc., the diamond is so big that it would likely depress the value of the market. So you'd have to settle for a much smaller diamond engagement ring. One interesting thing about the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds star is that it's incredibly dense. In fact, it has the mass of the sun crammed into an object only a third the diameter of Earth. That's like trying to fit an elephant into a shoebox. And yet, despite its massive size, it's actually quite cool, with a core temperature of only about 12,000 degrees Fahrenheit. By comparison, the core temperature of our sun is about 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. Since the discovery of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, several other crystallized stars have been found, some with diamond hearts the size of Earth. It just goes to show that the universe is full of surprises, and you never know what kind of treasures you might find out there in the vast expanse of space. And this isn't the only weird star we've discovered so far. There are many strange, unexplained things in outer space. For example, let's take Vega. Vega, also known as Alpha Lyrae, is a bright star located in the constellation Lyra. It's one of the brightest stars in the night sky and is easily visible to the naked eye from most parts of the world. Now, Vega may look like a beautiful, bright star to us Northern Hemisphere folks, but little do we know, it's hiding a secret. It's actually quite squashed. You see, Vega's high spin rate causes it to bulge at the equator, kind of like a cosmic belly. It rotates once every 12.5 hours, which is pretty fast for a star, and it throws material out around its waistline. It's almost like the star is hula hooping. This material is further from the center of the star, so it experiences less gravity, causing it to cool and darken, leading to a gravity darkening effect. So Vega is basically a cosmic fitness guru's worst nightmare. Although for us stargazers, it still looks round because we're looking at it from Earth's pole end. However, if we saw it from a different angle, we'd get a very different view. One that might make us wonder if Vega has been sneaking some cosmic donuts behind our backs. But while we might joke about its equatorial waistline, there's no denying that Vega is still one of the brightest and most fascinating stars in our galaxy. But if you want something actually bright, then how about a supernova? Supernovas are giant space booms that occur when stars reach the end of their life cycle. It's like the grand finale of a fireworks show, but on a cosmic scale. They release more energy in a few seconds than our sun will produce in its entire lifetime. And this is exactly what happened to the next star of our show. This celestial object with a weird name, IPFT 14HLS. But there's a catch. It isn't your average supernova. Even though this star made a blast in 2014 and started to fade away like usual, recently it made an unexpected comeback and brightened once more. Talk about a dramatic entrance. And if that wasn't enough, this thing continued to fade and brighten at least 5 times in total, which is a bit like a yo-yo. It's like the star just couldn't make up its mind about whether it wanted to stay bright or fade away into the abyss. Also, when scientists measured the supernova's spectrum, they found that it was evolving 10 times slower than other stars. Maybe it's a supernova that just wants to enjoy its golden years. All in all, this object is a real mystery. But this is not the only star suffering from the 2-in-1 syndrome. At first glance, MY Camelopardalis appears to be a fairly common star, but after a closer look, astronomers concluded it was actually 2 stars in one. These 2 stars are orbiting each other at over 600,000 miles per hour. It's a contact binary star system, which means that the stars are so close together that they share a common envelope. In other words, they're so close to each other that they're practically smooching. These celestial Romeo and Juliet are one of the most massive known binary stars out there. Each of them individually weighs in at a whopping 32 and 38 solar masses, respectively. Astronomers also think that they might be on the brink of a stellar merger, which means that one day they might just combine into one giant superstar. Wow, who knew space could be so romantic? Next, introducing another long name, HD 140283, also known as Methuselah's star. This little guy in the constellation Libra has been around for a while, and by a while, I mean a really long time. Actually, scientists used to think it was older than the universe itself. Just imagine if it turned out to be true. But eventually, they figured out that it's actually around 14.8 billion years old, a peer of our universe. That's still pretty impressive though. This star is so old, it remembers when the Milky Way was just a baby galaxy. But despite all that, this star still has some life left in it. It's just starting to expand into a red giant, which is kind of like when you hit your 30s. Talk about aging well. But if all these things are somewhat comprehensible, then how about a star that was literally named WTF star by scientists? No, I'm not kidding. At least it used to be. Now it's called Tabby's star. It also has a more scientific name, but that one is a bit of a mouthful. But what's really bizarre about this star is its irregular dimming. For some reason, it doesn't glow like a normal star, but blinks, as if someone turned on and off a flashlight. And it's not just a little dip, we're talking up to a 22% drop in light. So it's not because it sometimes gets blocked by a planet or something. Scientists have come up with all sorts of explanations for this strange behavior, from comets to dust to even an extraterrestrial megastructure. That's right, but before your imagination runs too wild, it's important to note that the most likely explanation is just plain old dust. Perhaps the star is surrounded by some kind of dust cloud, and sometimes it prevents us from seeing it clearly. Although this explanation is still not 100% confirmed, there are still plenty of mysteries surrounding Tabby's star. One thing's for sure, it may be a bit of an oddball, but that's what makes it so fascinating. So, there you have it, folks. We're left in awe of the incredible diversity and strangeness of the cosmos. There's so much more to discover out there. So let's keep exploring and keep being amazed by the wonders of the universe.
The most expensive stuff in the universe. Yeah, grandiose. Is called antimatter. Its existence was first theorized in 1930 when the electron was discovered. Scientists thought it might mean the exact opposite should exist too, and they called this hypothetical particle positron. Later, antipodes of other elementary particles, protons and neutrons, were proven to exist as well. Morons came later. When a particle and its evil twin collide with each other, they disappear, releasing literally tons of energy, 10,000 times more than a nuclear reaction does. But there's a catch. It takes about 100 billion years to create just 1 gram of antimatter, and it can only be created using the Large Hadron Collider. That's why the cost of this substance is about $62 trillion. And we're not even close to getting that much. Throughout the entire history of space observation, only 2 objects from another star system, or maybe even another galaxy, have entered our solar system. The first one was the Oumuamua asteroid, discovered in 2017. The second was Borisov, a comet found in August 2019. The cloud of dust that surrounds it allows scientists to learn more about substances that may have come to us from another galaxy. An unusual teardrop-shaped star was found. It has almost twice the mass of the Sun and looks like a big drop of lava because of the dwarf star hanging out nearby. The little buddy attracts the energy of its big brother and distorts its surface. Black holes can do that too. There's a star about 215 million light-years away from us that got spaghettified because of the gravity of a black hole nearby. Astronomers on Earth had to use dozens of telescopes to register the event. In the end, they saw a black hole gobbling up a star, which stretched until it became a thin ray of matter. As it was eating, the hole also ejected billions of tons of star material into space. About 250 million light-years away, though, there's a miraculous survival story. In 2020, a red giant came too close to a massive black hole, 400,000 times heavier than the Sun, and got caught in its gravitational pull. Normally, this means there's no escape. Once a black hole catches something, it will never let go of its prey. In this case, the star somehow managed to get away. Most of its outer layers were slurped away by the hungry black beast, leaving behind only the molten core, a white dwarf. And using this loss of mass, it ripped itself from the black hole's tug and started circling it at an ever-increasing orbit. Scientists are sure the white dwarf is still imprisoned forever, though, because the hole continues to chip away at it even as it gets further. In the end, the star will cool down and become a planet that looks much like Jupiter. But that might only happen in about 1 trillion years. I won't be around then. And much longer than the universe has been around so far. It was proved that a planet can orbit a black hole as it would a star. The energy from the hole would feed such a planet. But to survive in such conditions and not be pumped inside the event horizon, the planet must orbit very quickly, at nearly the speed of light, and the black hole itself must spin at the same speed. I can't but imagine what kind of life it would be on such a planet. Fast? Earthquakes on the moon, or shall I say earthquakes, aren't something from science fiction. They don't occur as often as on our planet, and when they do, it happens closer to the center of the satellite. Scientists think moonquakes might be caused by the gravity of Earth and the Sun. There are Marsquakes too. For a long time, the red planet had been considered tectonically inactive, but more recent observations have shown it still has weak quakes from time to time. You probably wouldn't even be able to feel them if you stood on Mars' surface, but it means some geological processes are still going on underneath the red and dusty landscape. At a distance of 640 light-years from the Sun, scientists discovered the planet WASP-76b, where it rains iron. The planet is very close to its Sun and always turn to it with the same side. The term is tidally locked. The temperature on the sunny side is so high that metals melt and evaporate there. The other half of the planet is cool enough that metals condense again and fall down as rain. Speaking of tidal locks, our moon is the same way. There's no dark side to our satellite, it's just always turned to us with one side. When the moon happens to be in between the Earth and the Sun, what we call its dark side becomes brightly lit. We just can't see it from our planet. Figures. Turns out there are plenty of planets in the universe, and even in the Milky Way galaxy, that have liquid or frozen water on them. The closest one is within our solar system. It's Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Scientists are almost sure that underneath its frozen surface, there's an actual ocean of water. But it's too soon to be hyped about possible life on other planets. Liquid water is only one of many things that have to come together for life to appear on a planet. In fact, there's a place millions of light years away where there's a whole floating space cloud made entirely of water. There's so much of it that it could fill all of our oceans 140 trillion times over, slightly more than what we need. Water on Earth is actually a puzzle shrouded in mystery and covered with riddles. The most popular theory is that it was brought to our planet by icy comets and asteroids that left behind not only mighty craters, but the liquid substance thanks to which we can now thrive. But in space, there's a whole lot of organic matter, and under specific conditions, it could yield so much water it would be enough to fill our oceans 1,000 times over. Researchers conducted an experiment in which they heated this organic matter and obtained clear water and oil. If this is confirmed in future studies, it could mean that even oil appeared on Earth not only thanks to fossilized remains of living beings, but came from outer space as well. And yet, there just might be about 6 billion Earth-like planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone. The latest data has shown that every fifth Sun-like star can have at least one planet in its habitable zone. And not just any planet, mind you. It has a rocky core and surface, and it's of a comparable size to the Earth. Being inside the habitable zone of a star, such a planet would have high chances of becoming home to living creatures, microbes at least. And if there are billions of these planets in our galaxy, you could safely say that at least one of them is not only inhabitable, but inhabited already. And now multiply this by the number of galaxies in the universe, also considering that many of them are much bigger than the Milky Way. This gives us billions upon billions of Sun-like stars and Earth-like planets, and some of them are surely more like ours than others. Until recently, we thought our galaxy looked like a circular spiral, but recent research has shown it looks more like a Pringles chip. Scientists measured the distances between the Sun and other stars and created a three-dimensional map of the Milky Way based on this data. It turned out that our galaxy is slightly curved at the edges and takes an S shape. At this, we might be able to walk upright because of supernova explosions. About 2.5 million years ago, a supernova sent cosmic rays to our planet. They triggered a series of electrical storms in the Earth's atmosphere, which turned into thunderstorms. Those in their turn caused wildfires in northeast Africa, where our earlier ancestors lived. Fires turned the forest area into a savanna, the atmospheric pressure changed, and our ancestors had to stand on two legs to survive. The biggest explosion since the Big Bang was registered in 2019. This happened in the Ophiuchus cluster, which unites thousands of galaxies. According to scientists, the blast was equal to 20 billion, that's 18 zeros, megaton explosions happening once a millisecond for 240 million years. I'll have to trust that. My math is not that good. Remember the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs on Earth? Who could forget? There might have been another space show that ended badly for at least 75% of all life on our planet in the past. Roughly 360 million years ago, a supernova explosion occurred about 65 light-years away from us, and the cosmic rays sent by it swept away the ozone layer of our pretty blue ball. If it had been any closer, all life could have easily been gone. Right now, the greatest threat for us comes in the form of Betelgeuse, not the movie, but a giant star about 600 light-years away. If it explodes into a supernova, we'll see it with unaided eyes even during the day.
How much would a pinch of sand be worth to you? How about without the elements of gold or platinum mixed into it, just moon dust? A recent auction sold it for $500,000, for literally just a pinch of what's on the moon. But this apparently valuable minuscule amount of dirt was valued purely on its historical relevance. That pinch of sticky moon sand was from a small pouch that was collected by Neil Armstrong on the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. It was a huge piece of human history and a physical reminder of when man first landed on the moon, something taken from a place that no one else has ever been able to. Selling something from the moon opens a whole new debate around the legality of owning, using, and selling space resources from unclaimed parts of the solar system. Currently, the world abides by the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which depicts the foundations of modern space law. This treaty, established so long ago, didn't predict the lucrative use of outer worlds for resource utilization. Although this treaty prevents anyone from claiming ownership of any new worlds, the potential value of these unclaimed territories is priceless. The moon is not only a stepping stone for future exploration into outer space, from which moon bases and possibly moon cities will one day thrive. For this purpose, humans will need to develop shipping bays and factories to support carriers to cross into new worlds. This project will need some good investments. Mining stations will provide the economy of the hypothetical moon city. There will be infrastructure and transportation to the moon and back again. All of this will cost a lot, way more than a reminder of when man first walked on the moon. So, apart from moon dust, what else could be valuable on the moon? There is value in the resources on the moon. We don't know the exact numbers, but it's estimated that there is more than was thought in the past. The Earth's natural satellite is believed to be abundant with iron, nickel, and cobalt, amongst many more. These minerals provide the potential for building Moon City itself. Just as in human history, cities around the world are a reflection of what resources are in abundance in their surroundings, and Moon City will be the same in that way. A gray city, walls made with metal, iron dust, and a lunar sand concrete, with great windows made from the unlimited sand available. The moon is also rich in silicon, an important ingredient in producing solar panel arrays. There's calcium to be used to fabricate the silicon-based solar cells, along with other ingredients found there, like titanium oxide, iron, and aluminum. The long-dormant lunar magma ocean residing under its surface holds magnesium. It's especially prominent within the lower crust and is useful for many purposes, most importantly for alloys with expected space travel. The production of steel requires many sources of carbon, crucially important for supporting the mega factories and for the many thousands of ships that will be built. Numerous rare earth materials are used in everything electrical. They continue to be more valuable, and their production is more prominent as technology progresses, especially in electric vehicles and wind turbines. Although rare earth materials are abundant on our planet, you won't find them in many concentrated areas. They are spread thin throughout the Earth, so locating and mining them is pretty costly, though they're more required with every year. The process of finding and mining on the moon is far easier and will be an important alternate source. Nitrogen, along with carbon, are important elements to support human colonization and farming, and ensure that the moon is not only habitable, but has a constant supply of food. We can obtain them within the moon's outer crust, so farming is possible there within sealed biospheres. Mining metals is a difficult process, but the result is worth it, not only for their value, but also because of the valuable byproducts that you can get in the process of extraction. It can be oxygen, available for breathable air within the city, and hydrogen to ensure water for the plants and for drinking. Valuable resources will not only come from within the surface of the moon. Its potential for solar power is so huge, it will ensure harvesting the solar waves to power Moon City. The fact that it lacks a thick atmosphere and that there's no interruption of weather patterns removes some major obstacles that are present on Earth. The energy created could be sufficient for all requirements on the moon, and, in the short term, may also help solve many of Earth's power concerns. Extracting resources and manufacturing requirements will be significant as time carries forward. As Moon City is going to grow, and humans will reach further into outer space, it will require more and more energy. The output to factories and production on the moon will become so elaborate that they will need alternate sources in reserve. Atom-powered fusion will be an important source of energy with no dangerous byproduct. It will be safer than the technologies of today that use uranium. Feeding this kind of fusion will require the most valuable of all resources found on the moon, helium-3. It's not only present on the moon, but can also be found on Earth. But the amount is super limited here due to our planet's strong magnetic field. It ensures life can thrive on Earth, but at the same time deflects the solar winds from the sun, making it difficult for helium-3 to be produced. The moon has no magnetic field and has been absorbing the solar wind for billions of years, constantly building up an endless supply of helium-3 in the process. It absorbs the winds into the top layer of solid material on the moon, also known as the regolith. The regolith is spread all over the moon, and it makes the extraction of the helium-3 an even more valuable action. Mining it would also include mining all the other valuable minerals in the process. The value of helium-3 is so substantial that many countries and companies are determined to gain a foothold on the moon. The value of this alone is within trillions of dollars. Some people believe the opportunities that helium-3 will give humanity are immeasurable. There will be unlimited energy providing millions of jobs in Moon City. That energy will also support the Earth's needs. Only 25 tons of helium-3 could power the United States for an entire year. This resource will provide the potential to power all of Earth for thousands of years and have enough energy required to help guide humans further into space. It will enable the construction of spaceports around Earth and allow for a more efficient journey from Earth to orbit. From there, people will be transferred to shuttles destined for other locations throughout the solar system. The lengths of spaceflight will be reduced significantly, creating more frequent flights toward Mars. Further ports will be erected around its orbit, supporting new colonies to reside on its surface. Mining colonies with the support of endless energy will spread throughout the red planet, with more valuable resources residing within its red soil. This new age of colonization in the solar system will cause a domino effect as it continues to push further, advancing with every generation of vessels developed. Travel will get more and more efficient as the helium-3 will continue to assist in advancing the technology of spacefaring ships. Outposts of all purposes will develop on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, from researching for potential habitability for life on Europa or Enceladus, to continuing the tradition of extracting valuable resources in every location. The moon will continue to find ways to provide the energy that's needed for terraforming new worlds. It will assist in warming Mars and powering an artificial magnetic field. It will also help with constructing a large reflector that will be able to cool down Venus. All of these will be the foundations for creating further livable locations for future generations of humans, all thanks to that initial source of energy from the moon. It's difficult to put an overall price tag on the moon, even when you know that there is value in harvesting its resources. The value of what the moon dust really amounts to can't be determined by a monetary figure, but by its potential to influence what humans can create as we continue to progress as a species.
People are shouting and waving their hands in the auction room. The presenter can't calm everyone down because the lot on the table is the most expensive dirt in the world. Its price is about $9 billion, but it's really hard to imagine its real value. Because it's dirt from Mars. It's so expensive because it's going to take 1 decade, billions of dollars, and 3 space missions to deliver the dirt here to Earth. And we've already started the first mission. On July 30th, 2020, a single-use Atlas V rocket was launched from Earth's surface towards Mars. The cost of launching such a rocket is about $109 million. The rocket carried the Perseverance rover and Ingenuity drone. The flight took about 7 months. On February 18th, 2021, the rocket finally reached its destination. The landing module carrying the rover and drone was launched into the atmosphere of Mars. The robotic heroes traveled inside a capsule faster than the speed of sound. Underneath, the capsule was protected by a heat shield to keep its valuable cargo from burning due to high temperatures. It was time for the team at NASA's Mission Control Center to clench their fists and hope that the landing would go smoothly. The entire process was automatic. Once the cargo capsule entered the atmosphere of Mars, a parachute successfully opened. This reduced the speed of the capsule to 1,400 feet per second. As soon as its drop speed went down to subsonic, the heat shield was dropped. At this point, people saw the surface of Mars for the first time with the help of the camera and radar placed inside the capsule. The capsule was already moving at speeds comparable to that of a supercar on a racetrack. The drop speed went down to 475 feet per second at an altitude of 6 miles above the surface. That's how high planes on Earth fly. At an altitude of about 2 miles, the 8 jet engines of the landing module started. The navigation system adjusted the landing trajectory. The landing module then separated from the parachute capsule and began its independent descent at a speed of 245 feet per second. Everyone at NASA's Mission Control Center was waiting for a successful landing. 1,000 feet above the surface, the rate of the descent is 100 feet per second. At about 65 feet above the surface, the sky crane system began lowering the rover to the surface. The Perseverance released its 6 wheels like an airplane releases its landing gear. The wheels of the rover were getting closer and closer to the surface. A few more feet, and touchdown. At the same moment, the Perseverance cut the cables of the sky crane. The entire team on Earth erupted with joy. In the next second, the rover also cut the cables connecting it to the landing module. It flew off and made its own uncontrolled landing. In other words, it crashed into the surface of the red planet. The second step of the mission that's supposed to deliver the most expensive dirt in history to Earth began with collecting samples. This phase actually started long ago on Earth. The rover carries 43 titanium tubes. Each of them can hold a soil sample the size of a human pinky. While preparing these tubes in a laboratory on Earth, scientists first blew some air through the tubes. Then they bathed them in tubs with acetone and other chemicals to make sure no bacteria remained inside. Then they were placed in an oven, heated up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 29 hours. When Perseverance collects samples in these tubes, they can be stored there for at least 10 years. By comparison, lunar soil samples put in sealed boxes could only be stored for 10 days. Perseverance also has a lot of equipment and spectrometers to research samples. It even has a powerful laser. The rover can melt solid rocks into plasma and then analyze their composition. Scientists hope to find traces of living organisms in these soil samples. That's exactly why Perseverance landed in Jezero Crater. This crater is as wide as the Great Salt Lake and was once filled with water. You can see dry riverbeds and clay deposits there. This makes scientists believe that once there was water in that region. And since water is the basis of all life, researchers hope to find traces of its existence here. Another goal of Perseverance is to test the technology that will make it possible to produce oxygen on Mars. People would need it for breathing and as rocket fuel. To do this, the rover uses MOXIE, which stands for the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. This is a box the size of a hamster cage that weighs as much as a large dog. Its purpose is to pressurize Martian air so that it resembles that on Earth and then heat it up. A chemical reaction with a special metal inside the box is supposed to break one atom of oxygen from carbon dioxide. As a result, we'll have carbon monoxide and pure oxygen. If this technology proves successful, it'll be scaled 200 times. This way, we'll produce enough oxygen for astronauts to breathe and for rockets to be launched back to Earth. So the $2.7 million rover, this price includes its design cost, construction, and maintenance, will be collecting dirt and rock samples until 2023. It'll leave closed tubes with samples right on the surface of Mars, and almost a decade later, they'll be collected. People will need another rover to do that. A new mission will take several $1 billion to build. Then it'll need 7 months to reach Mars. After that, there will be another complicated landing. It'll be a simple rover with big wheels. Those wheels will help it get around Martian hills. Large solar panels will power it with electricity. This rover will gather all the samples collected by Perseverance. Then, it'll load them into a case the size of a basketball and carry it toward the rocket that will land on Mars together with it. The next step will be to deliver the findings to Earth. The rocket with the soil and rock samples will have to take off from Mars and get into its orbit. Another spacecraft will be waiting for it there. The rocket will launch the sample case, and the spacecraft will catch it. This spacecraft will then start its engines and head back to Earth. Upon arrival, the spacecraft will drop an entry vehicle. It's basically a capsule protected by heat shields with the sample case inside. When the capsule enters Earth's atmosphere, it'll get very hot because of friction with the air, but the shields will protect the samples, and the capsule will land somewhere in Utah. The whole mission to deliver the samples will last about 5 years. Only after that, the samples will be ready for research, and people will finally find out if there's been life on Mars. Was it before the birth of Earth, around 4 billion years ago? Or was it before humans became an intelligent species? Scientists hope to find the answers to these questions. That's why these samples are actually worth a lot more than $9 billion. What if Mars indeed turned out to be a potentially habitable place, and people could build a colony there? Then it'd be a few more decades of work before we could get to the red planet. To do this, people would have to use many dozens of rockets. First, an empty spacecraft would be sent into orbit with the help of a launch rocket. Then another rocket would deliver cargo to this spacecraft, and people would need one more rocket to refuel the spacecraft. Only then, a 7-month trip to Mars would begin. The spacecraft would have to deliver enough research equipment, building materials, and other supplies to Mars. Then we'd need to organize energy production. We could use nuclear power plants or solar panels for this. Houses for people would most likely be located underground. Mars's atmosphere doesn't have much protection from solar radiation, so people would have to hide from the sun. The next tasks would be fuel and oxygen production. Moxie could help us with this. And of course, food farming. People would grow food in airtight greenhouses right on Martian soil. But we'd still have to wear spacesuits there. To feel at home, people would have to terraform Mars. We'd have to heat the planet and create an atmosphere similar to that on Earth. The pressure on Mars right now only allows water to be in a frozen state. We'd have to make it liquid. Scientists offer many ways to do this. One of them is making a huge meteorite crash into Mars. But whatever method it is, it'd still take many dozens or even hundreds of years before we could call Mars our new home.
Deep in the heart of the universe, there's a mysterious and powerful force, hidden, waiting to be unlocked. It's a force that could change the world as we know it, and it's called antimatter. Let's discover what this thing is and how we could use it to turn our lives upside down. Antimatter is the science fiction fantasy come to life. You may have heard about it in Star Trek and Star Wars, but it's actually a real thing that scientists have been studying for over a century. But what is it exactly, and how is it different from regular matter? Well, let's start with the basics. You probably know that atoms are made up of tiny particles called protons, neutrons, and electrons. These particles are all made of matter, which is what we're all made of and what makes up everything around us. And antimatter is just like that, but with a twist. Instead of protons, antimatter atoms have something called antiprotons. And instead of neutrons, they have antineutrons. And instead of electrons, they have positrons. Almost got you there. Basically, antimatter is made up of particles with opposite charge, spin, and other properties of regular matter. While a proton has a positive charge and an antiproton has a negative charge, and while an electron has a negative charge, an anti-electron, also known as a positron, has a positive charge. Get it? Antimatter is kinda like an evil twin of regular matter. It's the mirror image of everything that we're all familiar with. Just like how Batman has the Joker, matter has antimatter. So, if you ever wanted to know what it's like to be in a world where everything is made of the opposite, this would be your answer. And here's the best part. When the antimatter and matter particles meet, they literally annihilate each other, releasing a tremendous amount of energy at the same time. This is why scientists believe that it could provide an almost limitless source of power. Now, you might be wondering, where is all this antimatter? Why don't we have these antiparticles flying around and throwing crazy fireworks after every touch with regular particles? Actually, scientists believe that during the Big Bang, matter and antimatter were created in equal amounts, but for some reason, matter came to dominate. So, when they started destroying each other, in the end, ordinary matter won by a hair. Why did it happen? We still have no idea. This is one of the biggest mysteries in physics. All we know is that in the end, that's how we got the universe we know today. Makes you wonder what our universe would look like if regular matter lost. But that's a topic for another day. Antimatter is considered to be one of the most fascinating things in science. It has the potential to revolutionize our understanding of the universe and, of course, may be a new source of energy. Imagine a fuel that could power a spaceship to the far reaches of the galaxy, or a power plant that could provide for an entire city. This is what we can get if we solve this puzzle. But how was antimatter even discovered? Especially considering that there was nothing left of it at the beginning of the universe. Well, scientists were able to discover it in a very clever way. First of all, we have to go back in time to the early 20th century. That's when a physicist named Paul Dirac predicted the existence of antimatter. He had a theory that for every particle of matter in the universe, there must be a corresponding antiparticle. This idea made a huge fuss at the time. But his theory was later confirmed experimentally. In the 1930s, another physicist named Carl Anderson discovered the positron, the opposite of the electron. It was the first known antimatter particle. And this discovery was a huge breakthrough in science. Scientists soon discovered more antiparticles, and it sparked a whole new field of study. Antimatter physics. We're still exploring it to this day. But how did we even discover these particles? Didn't we just say that there was no antimatter left after the Big Bang? Well, not really. There is some antimatter in space. It's just very rare, and finding it is a real treasure hunt. Scientists look for antimatter in space by searching for cosmic rays that are made up of antimatter particles. We can also create antimatter in laboratories. Right now, scientists use super cool machines called particle accelerators for that. The most famous one is the CERN's Large Hadron Collider, which is the biggest, most famous collider in the world. These machines shoot tiny particles at super high speeds. It's kind of like a cosmic game of billiards. When these particles crash into each other, they create antimatter particles. Then, they use special containers called penning traps to store the antimatter. It's like keeping a tiny supernova in a jar. Now, thanks to antimatter, we can change our entire world. Scientists have estimated that even just a tiny bit of it, like a couple of ounces, could give you the same energy as burning millions of gallons of gasoline. So even with a tiniest amount of it, you could power an entire city for a year. It's like holding the power of a star in your hand. That's why the scientific community is working on ways to use this superpower to make our lives better. They want to use it to make electricity, like we do with coal and natural gas. In the future, it could be used as a super clean and infinite energy source. They also want to use it to power spaceships so we can travel to other planets and stars. Imagine a rocket that could take us to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, powered by the energy of antimatter. Even a small amount of it could power a spacecraft for a very long time. And that's not all. Antimatter can also be used in medicine. Scientists are trying to use it to fight cancer and make images of the inside of our bodies. It's like a super tool that can help doctors in many ways. In short, antimatter is amazing and powerful, and now we just have to figure out how to use it. And here comes the catch. Even though antimatter is super powerful, but also super tricky to make and keep around. It takes a lot of energy to make even a tiny bit of antimatter. It requires incredibly high energy inputs, making it very expensive to produce in large quantities. These are also some other problems. For example, once we've got our tiny amount of antimatter, how do we store it? We can't just put it in a jar. Antiparticles are extremely unstable, and they're also attracted to regular matter like a magnet to a fridge. So, scientists have come up with some clever ways to store it, like trapping them in a vacuum or storing them in some incredibly strong magnetic fields. And even then, it's still a delicate and expensive process. These and many other reasons explain why antimatter isn't viable for large-scale production yet. If you were trying to fill up your car's gas tank with antimatter, it would cost more than a small country's GDP. But even though creating antimatter is an enormous scientific challenge, the potential rewards are huge. That's why right now, scientists are working on finding ways to produce and store it in a more efficient and cost-effective way. And if they succeed, it could become the new ultimate energy source. Antimatter research is a fascinating and rapidly evolving field. And who knows, maybe in the future, we'll be able to power our homes and cars with antimatter. Now that would be awesome. Back in May 2015, David Hull took his metal detector and went looking for gold. He picked the perfect spot for it. Mayaborough near Melbourne, Australia, was the top location down under during the gold rush in the 19th century. The detector beeped, showing there was something precious hiding in the ground. David found a very heavy reddish rock with a weird, dimpled surface resting in some yellow clay. As it turned out later, the find was indeed priceless, but only for science. David took the rock home, hoping he'd be able to open it and find a gold nugget inside. He tried a rock saw, an angle grinder, and a drill, and put the rock in acid. Nothing worked. Not even a sledgehammer did the job. A couple of years later, he decided to take the rock to Melbourne Museum and finally find out what it really was. It turned out it was a meteorite, and a rare one. The geologist working at the museum was over the moon, as after years of looking at thousands of rocks that people had thought to be meteorites, he finally got his hands on the real thing. The space origin of the rock explained why it was so unusually heavy. It contained dense forms of iron and nickel, and those guys weigh a lot. And it got its dimpled surface because it started melting when it plunged through Earth's atmosphere. Scientists named the meteorite Maraborough after the place where it was found and used a diamond saw to study it better. They sliced off a sliver of the space rock and saw some tiny crystallized droplets of metallic minerals throughout it. Those minerals formed during the early years of our solar system. It means the space guest was around 4.6 billion years old. The researchers are still not quite sure where the meteorite came from or how long it's been on Earth, but they've got some guesses. Our solar system used to be a swirling mix of dust and chondrite rocks. Gravity did its thing and formed planets, but there were some leftovers, and most of them ended up in a massive asteroid belt. The Maraborough meteorite likely took a detour from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It got bumped out of there by asteroids crashing into each other, and one fine day, it decided to crash into Earth. Carbon dating says that this space rock has been chilling on Earth for somewhere between 100 and 1,000 years. There were meteorite sightings in the 19th century that could match up with when it made its grand entrance. The scientists say the Maraborough meteorite is even rarer than gold. It's only the 17th meteorite ever found in the Australian state of Victoria and the second largest. In the 80s, David Mazurek from Michigan decided to buy a farm not far from Mount Pleasant. The new property came with a weird bonus. a large rock that kept the barn door open. The farmer explained the rock was a meteorite. It had literally fallen from the sky in the 30s. The farmer and his father found the crater the meteorite had left and dug out their guest from space, which was still warm. They couldn't think of a better use for it than to serve as a doorstop. I mean, what else can you do with a meteorite? The new owner got to keep the unconventional doorstop and must have grown fond of it. When he was moving to a new home, he took the rock with him and used it for the same purpose for another 30 years. Sometimes David would let his kids take it to school. It must have gotten some easy A's in physics and astronomy. Then he heard that other Michigan residents find and sell pieces of meteorites for some serious cash. Since his piece was an impressive 22 pounds, he decided to take it to Central Michigan University to find out its value. A local geology professor was getting tired of similar requests because, for around 18 years, she had to explain to people all the rocks they had brought her weren't meteorites at all. But this time, she felt it was the real thing. She tested the rock and determined it was a meteorite made from iron and nickel. It turned out to be the 6th largest recorded find of this kind in Michigan, and the most valuable specimen she's ever worked with. They sent a slice for another round of verification to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., and soon it was all official. It turned out that the meteorite was a piece of an early solar system. The Smithsonian and a museum in Maine offered some good money for the space rock. Mazurek decided to sell his meteorite to Michigan State University's Abrams Planetarium for $75,000. He generously shared 10% of the money with Central Michigan University's Earth and Atmospheric Sciences Department, where they confirmed the rock's true identity. I hope the money he was left with was enough to buy a new doorstop. While some use meteorites as furniture, scientists have found a way to utilize them to extract oxygen from water on Mars. Traveling to the red planet is impossible without oxygen. We need it both to breathe and fuel rockets for a return trip to Earth. The new robot, called AI Chemist, hunts down a compound that can kickstart a chemical reaction on Mars to produce oxygen. The compound is crafted from elements found in Martian meteorites. This planet only has traces of oxygen in its atmosphere. But scientists have found there's some liquid water underneath the southern ice cap of Mars and more water under its surface. So, they needed to figure out how to break down this water into its hydrogen and oxygen molecules using materials available on the red planet. The AI chemist analyzed 5 meteorites that either came from Mars or were similar to that of its surface. It used a laser to locate large amounts of iron, nickel, calcium, magnesium, aluminum, and manganese in the samples. These elements will be enough to produce more than 3.7 million possible molecules to break down water and generate oxygen on the red planet. Finding the right algorithm for this process would take us humans around 2,000 years, and the robot managed to do it in a matter of weeks. Using the meteorite compound as a catalyst, the robot managed to do its job in -35 degrees Fahrenheit on Earth, and it did so without any human help at all. Now the question is, if it will be able to do the same on Mars, where the atmospheric composition, air density, humidity, gravity, and other conditions are trickier than on Earth. Other scientists previously managed to produce small amounts of oxygen fit for breathing up there. An instrument the size of a lunchbox on NASA's Perseverance rover compressed and heated carbon dioxide from Mars's atmosphere. It generated oxygen at around the same speed as a small tree. I think Matt Damon's character from The Martian would have loved all these advances in space science. Thousands of meteorites crash into our planet every year. 95% of them are thought to come from just 2 sources. 75% from the crust of a big asteroid, and 20% from the mantle of an even larger celestial body that bit the dust ages ago. But in May 2020, researchers stumbled upon some meteorite pieces in the Sahara Desert that were like nothing they'd seen before. They were labeled as ungrouped achondrites, a type of rock that formed from melted minor planets way back in the solar system's early days. This makes the find slightly older than Earth itself. But unlike others of its kind, this meteorite was made out of andesite, which made it even more unique. It could serve as proof that the early protoplanets in the solar system and a ton of other debris either got wrecked or joined forces in building the rocky planets we know today.
Not unlike a giant cosmic blinker, a supermassive black hole 570 million light-years away flares every 114 days. Recently, astronomers have noticed powerful eruptions of light coming from the hole. The monstrosity is about 20 times the mass of the one at the center of our home Milky Way galaxy. So far, the only explanation scientists have is the black hole is ripping chunks of matter out of an orbiting star. It happens every time it gets too close. This discovery is rather exotic because no one has ever seen a black hole do something like that before. Usually, if a star comes close to a black hole, the space monster shreds it into thin strands, like spaghetti. After that, the black hole swallows most of the star's matter. The remains arc away in long, bright streamers. But not in this case. Every time the star approaches the black hole, it loses about 3 times the mass of Jupiter, and that's the largest planet in our solar system. This also results in a tremendous flare that astronomers can see on Earth. The flares are so regular and consistent that the researchers managed to predict several of them. They happened on September 6th and December 26th, 2020. A nebula is a cloud of dust and gas in outer space. You can see it in the night sky, either as a bright patch or, vice versa, a dark spot against some glowing matter. The Red Rectangle Nebula in the constellation Monoceros, or the Unicorn, is unlike others. Our universe has very few straight lines, and here you are, looking at a giant rectangle, which is a huge gaseous nebula, no less. And then, there's also the color, a bizarre shade of orange-red. Astronomers suppose the glow might be coming from some unusual activity inside the dust clusters. This activity is likely to be going on at the molecular level. The universe is around 13.8 billion years old, but HD 140283, a star informally called Methuselah, is apparently more than 14 billion years old. Even more paradoxical, the star has some chemical elements that are more typical for a second-generation star. Those are the ones formed from dust and gas left after the explosion of the first generation of stars. And still, the main problem is, how can a star be older than the universe itself? So far, the most likely explanation is an error in observations. It could make astronomers believe the star is older than it is. The star called Vega is relatively close to us, a mere 25 light-years away from the Sun. It's not the most usual star out there. It's brighter than it's supposed to be, and it's not round, but rather egg-shaped. Astronomers claim that's because the star rotates so fast, its shape changes. See for yourself. It takes the Sun 27 days to make a rotation, and Vega needs only 12.5 hours to turn on its axis. This speed also influences the temperatures on the star's surface. Its poles are several thousand degrees hotter than the equator. There's a supermassive black hole 250 million light-years away from Earth. It produces the deepest sound ever detected from any object in the universe. It's 1 quadrillion, which is 1 with 15 zeros, times deeper than what the human ear can hear. The Fermi bubbles confuse astronomers to no end. It's not every day that our home galaxy blows bubbles that are hotter than 7 million degrees Fahrenheit. Coming from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the spheres are made up of nothing but powerful gamma rays. It would be a bit less strange should one bubble stay inside the other, with both of them at the center of the galaxy's core. But the 2 giant spheres hover independently above and below the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. Even more bizarre, they touch and form an hourglass shape. It makes the entire structure look like the number 8. The bubbles themselves are well defined and slightly sharp-edged. They're also breathtakingly enormous, spanning a total length of 50,000 light years. Scientists have yet to crack several mysteries connected with the Fermi bubbles, like what can produce such extreme energy? It's as powerful as 100,000 exploding supernovae. Or what's with the off-center nature of the bubbles? Something must be going on there, even though it seems that the bubbles surround nothingness. K2-141b, a planet outside of our solar system, seems to be not that different from Earth. If you visited it, you'd see liquid oceans evaporating into the atmosphere. Just like on our home planet, the vapor then condenses and gets back to the surface as rain. But instead of water, all this happens with rock. The surface of the unusual exoplanet is covered with lava seas. In most places, they're tens of miles deep. And since the temperatures on the planet reach 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, the magma in the oceans vaporizes into the atmosphere. After that, supersonic winds, moving at a speed of 1 mile per second, carry the rock vapor to the planet's night side. There, the vaporized magma cools down, becomes liquid again, and falls to the surface as rocky rain. Faraway Neptune-sized exoplanet Gliese 436b is a paradox. It's made of scorching hot ice. The planet completes one full orbit around the red dwarf Gliese 436 in 2 days, 15 hours, which means it travels remarkably close to its parent star. That might be the reason why the planet's temperatures rarely drop below 800 degrees Fahrenheit. But the strangest thing? The planet has huge volumes of water ice, known as Ice X. It remains solid despite blistering temperatures. Neutrinos are teeny, almost massless particles that can move at nearly the speed of light. They can easily pass even through metals and travel miles and miles without anything to stop them. You can be sure that some neutrinos are passing through your body right now while you're watching this video. These elusive subatomic particles get born in supernova explosions and in nuclear reactions inside stars. About 4,000 light-years away from Earth, in the constellation of Serpens, there's a bizarre planet. Astronomers think it could once be the core of a massive star, long gone now. 5 times the size of Earth, it seems to be one enormous diamond. The planet is denser than any other discovered so far and is made up of mostly carbon. It's so dense that astronomers think this carbon might be crystalline. It means that at least some part of the planet is diamond. Most stars move around the center of their galaxies following fixed orbits, but not HE 0437-5439. This 30-million-year-old star that appeared not far from the center of the Milky Way decided to set off on a journey. Astronomers think the star might have come across the supermassive black hole Sagittarius A star, and the space monster might have pushed the star out of the galaxy. It's now traveling through the Milky Way's outer halo, moving right into interstellar space at a speed of 1,600,000 miles per hour. Stellar halos surround galaxies and are home to stars and star clusters. This discovery turned out to be extremely confusing. Such short-lived massive stars, because tens or even hundreds of millions of years is a very young age for a star, aren't usually found in the halo. There, you can only encounter the oldest stars in our galaxy, those that are at least 10 billion years old. When disastrous magnetic field collisions occur at the sun's equator, they cause ginormous tsunamis of plasma. These tsunamis move across the star's surface at a speed of 1,000 feet per second. Such a tsunami can last for weeks at a time. They happen almost every decade. More than 7,000 light-years away from Earth, there is the Eagle Nebula. It's a young cluster of stars, just 5.5 million years old. the Hubble Space Telescope managed to take an image of several dark silhouettes near the nebula's center. Those are the so-called pillars of creation, towering tendrils of interstellar gas and dust. They're also a part of the nebula's active star-forming region. Newborn stars are hidden in these wispy columns. Unlike their supermassive siblings, hypothetical mini black holes could be really tiny, not bigger than an atom. But even so, just one minuscule thing would have the mass of 1,000 sedans. One theory claims tons of micro black holes could have appeared right after the Big Bang and the beginning of the universe. Some scientists even go as far as to say that several mini black holes pass through our planet every day, totally unnoticed. Scientists think white holes might exist, even though none has been found yet. When some space object comes across a white hole, it can't enter it from the outside, but light and matter can escape from within the hole.
The year 2022 was rich in amazing discoveries. Let's have a look at the most impressive of them. The newest of NASA's rovers, Perseverance, keeps exploring the surface of the red planet. Right now, it's hunting for signs of ancient life in the Jezero crater. That's a 28-mile-wide impact crater. It was likely once filled with water. While trekking across the crater's floor, the rover spotted several surprising things. One of them was a weird purple coating on a few rocks. It was strangely similar to rock varnish formed by microbes on our planet. Scientists haven't figured out what it is yet. The rover has also been very successful in adding new samples to its rock collection. It's got 14 pieces of rock. They'll be stored on the surface of Mars for future missions to collect. NASA and the European Space Agency have been developing different plans for getting hold of these samples. Most of them involve a few spacecraft and even several helicopters. How about something more down to Earth? In June, a giant freshwater stingray was discovered in the Mekong River in Cambodia. A fisherman called Mao Tong accidentally snagged it while fishing. He called researchers, claiming the stingray was way larger than anything he had ever seen. The scientists arrived and found out that the creature measured 13 feet from snout to tail. It also weighed a staggering 660 pounds. This made it the largest freshwater fish that had ever been recorded. It was even certified by the Guinness World Records. Another animal-related discovery: scientists have found evidence that spiders might see dreams. One scientist studying these creatures noticed that when snoozing, little arachnids jerked while dangling from a thread with their legs curled. It resembled the way cats and dogs twitch while dreaming. The researchers set up a whole lab to observe spiders. The resulting study revealed that jumping spiders indeed experienced a sleep-like state that included the rapid eye movement stage. And with 8 eyes, that's a lot of twitching. Researchers identified the remains of a 17th-century Spanish galleon. It was found near Oregon's north coast. Experts think that those are the remains of Santo Cristo de Burgos. In 1693, this vessel was traveling from the Philippines to Mexico, but at one point it veered off its course and disappeared. The lost galleon was known as the beeswax wreck. It got such a name because it was carrying blocks of beeswax. People had known about the ship for a long time, since parts of its cargo were often washed up on shore. But until recently, no one knew the name of the ship. But then researchers analyzed timbers discovered in a cave near Astoria. The analysis revealed that those were made from hardwood used to build ships in Asia in the 17th century, which meant the mysterious vessel was the perfect match for Santo Cristo de Burgos. Now, early in 2022, scientists noticed something alarming in West Antarctica. They already knew that the wedge of the continent sitting south of Argentina might raise the sea level by 10 feet. The thing is, our world is changing, and some of that ice is going to melt one day. But that's not the worst news. Experts spotted ominous hints that a massive collapse could occur really soon. A large ice shelf cracked suddenly. This ice shelf stops the ice sheet from slipping into the ocean and melting away. If this rupture widens, it might kick off a catastrophic chain reaction. Elsewhere, it was January when a submarine volcano known as Hunga Tonga Hunga Hahapai in the Kingdom of Tonga erupted. The event was unlike any other witnessed in recent decades. The blast was so powerful that it sent a pressure wave all over the globe, and it traveled around the world not once, but several times. It also produced giant tsunami waves. Scientists claim that everything about the eruption was extremely weird. For example, how insanely powerful it was, or the cascade of effects that followed. The eruption excavated more than 2 cubic miles of rock from the seafloor, becoming the largest volcanic blast in the past 100 years. It also unleashed tons of volcanic rubble and hot ash that moved along the seafloor for a whopping 50 miles. Also in January, scientists discovered a site in southeastern Australia with rocks that contained a breathtaking record of life. The fossils found at McGrath's Flat are estimated to be from 11 to 16 million years old. Those are soft-bodied small creatures, including spiders, and they're preserved in such extraordinary detail that you can even see the spider's leg hairs. The researchers also managed to spot tiny pores in fossilized leaves. Those pores used to take in carbon dioxide. Scientists discovered several new snail species while searching for animals in Southeast Asia, and they believe that 2 of these species are the smallest of all seen before. One of them lies in Vietnamese caves and is a mere 0.02 inches in length, which means if you decided to put them on a U.S. quarter, many hundreds would fit there. Now, I bet you heard of NASA's James Webb Telescope. It's a giant infrared instrument, and it's floating in space millions of miles away from our planet. It spent the first part of 2022 preparing to take its first images, and in July, the world finally saw those pictures. The images of the cosmos taken by the telescope are incredibly detailed. In fact, one picture was even called the deepest view of the universe ever. Among other pictures, there is a now iconic image of the Carina Nebula. Another one is a stunning view of Neptune's rings. At the moment, the telescope has a long list of observations it has to do. It's supposed to explore everything, from distant exoplanets to the oldest galaxies out there. Now, you probably know that 65 million years ago, give or take, life on planet Earth changed forever after a 6.5-mile-wide asteroid crashed into our planet. This catastrophic event caused a mass extinction, which, in turn, led to 3/4 of all species, including dinos, disappearing from the face of the Earth. In February, scientists got exciting new information about the disaster. They studied some fish fossils and concluded that the asteroid had hit Earth during spring in the northern hemisphere. Another discovery was made in March. It turns out that right after the impact, rocks started to rain down more than 1,000 miles away from the impact site. And in August, scientists found something that could be a fragment of the asteroid off the coast of West Africa. It probably broke off and slammed into Earth separately, leaving an undersea crater. Now, brace yourself. Earlier this year, scientists grew brain cells in a lab and taught them to play video games. Yeah, I know, that's wild. Researchers from Australia claim they created the so-called mini-brains that could sense and respond to their environment. Each brain consisted of 800,000 cells. When viewing video games, they produced electrical activity. And even though they often missed the ball in a particular game, the connection rate was higher than a totally random chance. A research team funded by the National Geographic Society discovered a curious fossil in August 2022. It belongs to the oldest dinosaur found in Africa, this guy, whose name I can't pronounce. This ancient creature lived about 230 million years ago. It was one of the earliest ancestors of sauropods that we know about. This group includes such long-necked giants as the Brontosaurus. But unlike them, the dino we're talking about wasn't a giant. Scientists think it was probably a mere 2 feet tall at the hip. And some more great news. We now know for sure how to nudge asteroids off track. NASA made a spaceship known as DART crash into an asteroid. The main goal of this experiment was to check whether such a collision could change the course of the asteroid, knocking it off its orbit. This method could help us avoid a potentially catastrophic asteroid strike. The spacecraft, which cost $325 million and was the size of a vending machine, slammed into asteroid Dimorphos at a speed of 14,000 miles per hour. The spaceship burst into pieces right away. But the mission still seemed to be a success since Dimorphos was indeed affected by the collision to a measurable degree. So, maybe we won't need Bruce Willis and his gang after all. In the near future, people have made the greatest space discovery in history. The entire population of Earth looks up to the sky to see the greatest astronomical show ever. Is this real? What does it mean? Scientists have been studying galaxies, planets, and black holes millions of light years away. But all this time, something fantastic has been hiding in plain sight right above our eyes, on the moon. Starting a few years ago, humans began going to the moon again and finally set up a permanent base there. While excavating the lunar landscape, one lucky drill smashed into something like a metal plate. It turns out that metal contains polycarbonate, aluminum, gold, and silver. That's very similar to something humans already have on Earth. It's basically what CDs are made out of. People start going excavation crazy. Who knows what else is down there? The moon turns out to be our greatest resource. After a few months, lunar construction equipment has excavated several hundred feet of the shiny surface. At first, it was kept quiet, but a year later, that becomes impossible. Excavation crews dig out a huge rectangular shiny piece, the size of 10 football fields. And that plate is not alone. There are literally millions of them. After a little more research, scientists discover that the entire surface is covered with this strange material. People gaze up every night at the unusual moon in the starry sky. It glows a little brighter than before. You only need the most ordinary telescope to see that things are about to get weird. The excavation work isn't complete, but scientists have concluded that the moon is a huge disco ball. Who created it? For what? And what does this mean for us humans? No one has any answers. Soon, humans managed to dig up more than half of the moon. In some places, the plates are too deep to get to. They're stuck under mountains. In other places, the plates of the disco ball lie directly under the surface. Somehow, even with this crazy discovery, the properties of the moon haven't changed in any way, except that it's become brighter. Attempts to dig deeper, to pierce through the plates, are hopeless. The layer of polycarbonate and metal alloys is too thick and seems to go deep into the core of the moon. Some scientists suggest that if the moon's surface resembles a CD, it might just mean that there's some information recorded on it. That would change the course of history. They decide to build a laser reader to see if the moon really is a whopping big CD. Meanwhile, the drilling continues. On the dark side of the moon, which isn't always dark by the way, people find a small crater. Surprisingly, there's no shiny material inside. This perfectly round hole looks like a dried-up lake. At first, everyone assumes that there was a plate there. It just must have flown off somehow. But then, why was that crater so perfectly round? After a little more investigation, diggers find something that looks like plastic. What's that all about? Then, unexpectedly, the digging stops. The huge rig smashes against a thick alloy of unique durable plastic. There's a perfectly round plastic disc hiding inside the crater, the only one on the entire moon. It becomes clear that this huge disco ball was created by something billions of years ago. It's been covered with cosmic dust ever since. IT specialists scan the entire lunar surface with the help of satellites. They find something. It looks like there's a complex electronic system hidden under the disk. If you look at the moon as a whole, the crater starts to look an awful lot like, well, a button. Time to press play on the moon. To understand what's going on there, scientists try to get through the plastic layer. While they're doing that, there's an accident. An automatic drill explodes under insane pressure. The blast is so strong that it activates the button. All of humanity freezes in fear. There's silence, real silence. Then, it happens. The moon starts to rotate ever so slowly on its axis. Then, hour after hour, it rotates faster and faster. There's a mad rush to get everyone off the moon. Soon, it'll be spinning too fast to take off from safely. A lot of people fly halfway across the planet, where it's night, to see what's up with the moon. Every TV channel, website, blog, vlog, live stream, everyone's broadcasting the same images, those of the great disco ball in the sky. The moon begins to spin so fast that all the loose rock and sand on its surface gets scattered in different directions. Some lunar fragments fall on Earth and create an incredible meteor shower. The moon is spinning faster and faster. Now it looks like a real disco ball. The night sky is lit up with bright rays of white. It's incredible. People are ecstatic, amazed, delighted. But a moment later, all of humanity descends into a deep state of fear. Astronomers report that the moon is approaching Earth. When it gets too close, Earth's gravity will destroy it, and the giant crushed-up disco ball will smash into our planet. Every hour, the moon gets bigger in the night sky. Floods are starting to break out all over the world. People dust off their underground bunkers and get inside. There's no time to blast the moon with a rocket or anything like that. This could be it. The moon creeps closer and closer to the Earth's atmosphere. Then it stops, and nothing happens. Incredible! The disco ball isn't affected by our planet's gravity. Some sort of ancient technology inside the moon just saved us from disaster. Then, a deafening sound booms out from the night sky. It's coming from the disco ball. The sound wave obliterates all the clouds in the sky. It sounds like a roar, a deafening bass that makes the ground shake. It's intimidating, scary, but then a rhythm starts to come out from the wall of sound. Impossible! There's music coming right out of the moon. Then some plates start to change color. They turn purple, pink, blue, green. It looks wild. The different color rays dance around on the Earth's surface. It gives everyone an insane energy boost. Everyone wants to be outside with friends, neighbors, anyone. One moment you're standing under a green glow, and a second later, everything around you gets lit up in pink. The incredible light show creates an unbelievable desire to dance. DJs around the world team up to record a whole new sound that mixes with the moon's music. They call it MLB, the Moon Light Beat. People all over the world go out into the streets and kick off the biggest party ever. Scientists now think that billions of years ago, our planet was inhabited by huge intelligent beings the size of Mount Everest. They wanted a party and set about creating a huge disco ball. Then these creatures moved on to another planet. Earth was getting kind of cramped, and the disco ball was simply forgotten. Over millions of years, dust and rock obscured it from view. For several months, the moon continues to spin, and DJs keep pumping out music. People start to get a bit tired of the whole thing. They want a bit of silence and a calm, starry sky, not a glittering moon disco ball. Humanity starts experiencing mass insomnia and dizziness. All flights are grounded because the bright colored flashes make it impossible for pilots to see properly. Unfortunately, no one knows how to turn this thing off, and it's impossible to study because the moon's moving around too fast. The problem is solved by itself. The ball stops and returns to its orbit. It's possible that it just ran out of battery. People aren't exactly in a rush to reactivate it, but they leave detailed instructions for their descendants in case they want to throw a global party. Ah yes, February 14th, 2000. Just a regular Valentine's Day, some flowers and some candy, the beginning of the new millennium, and a good day to make history. Near Shoemaker, which stands for Near Earth Asteroid Rendezvous spacecraft, launched in 1996, finally got a date with asteroid 433 Eros. It wasn't about swiping right, but going around Eros and completing the first soft landing on an asteroid ever. Near almost didn't make it there, because an engine misfire from 1998 brought it into the wrong trajectory and it missed the target. Yet, engineers decided to let Near do the circle around the Sun for one more year, and it eventually made it. Near Shoemaker was created to find, target, and stalk some smaller space objects for around a year and collect important data about them. This spacecraft got more than 160,000 pictures of the asteroid's surface, which helped with research in the years to come. Before then, some scientists took asteroids for just some random flying piles. Asteroid 433 Eros is indeed the smallest body in our solar system that got its own spacecraft orbiting it. At first sight, this asteroid seems like any other ordinary rock coming from space. Potato-shaped, rotating every 5.5 hours, the size of 2 Manhattans. For comparison, the biggest asteroid discovered is 383 miles across, while the smallest one is around 6 feet wide. Asteroids are actually some kind of leftovers that remain from the early stages of the solar system. The Sun, as we know it, began to get its shape when compressed gases and atoms started blending into a protostar. Smaller grains of debris and dust around the Sun formed into rocks, and as they were crashing into each other, ta-da! They formed even bigger ones. Objects that survive this chaotic and messy party are something we know today as planets and moons. Smaller bodies that couldn't get the status of a planet are called asteroids. They're too small to have any atmosphere, and their gravity isn't strong enough to shape them into a sphere, so they don't have conditions to support life. Most of them end up somewhere in between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars, and simply pass us by at a safe distance, but not Eros. It became the first of near-Earth asteroids, or NEAs. Since 1975, the closest Eros got to Earth was in 2012, around 16.5 million miles away, which makes it about 70 times the average distance to the Moon. It was discovered in 1898 and named after the Greek deity of love. You know, Eros, the arrows that he uses to make people fall in love with each other, the mess he makes with broken hearts. Yup, in Greek mythology, they call him Cupid. Among many other fascinating space discoveries is nuclear pasta. Not like one my grandma makes, true, but not that bad either. The recipe says you should 1. Wait for a star to reach a certain age when it's time for it to explode. And be patient because this could take maybe around 1 billion years. 2. After the explosion, collect its leftover neutrons and stir them until you get an extremely dense stew. Toss in some gravity to taste, and the last step, don't forget to bake it at 1 million degrees Fahrenheit. Nuclear pasta is definitely one of the weirdest meals on the universe menu, but also potentially the strongest material out there. You would need 10 billion times bigger force to shatter a place of nuclear pasta than to break steel. Scientists believe this stuff is that strong because it's incredibly dense, kinda like me. Picture this, 1.3 million Earths squeezed down and scrunched into the size of Toronto. Oumuamua is the first visitor that came to our solar system, something that scientists have been waiting for decades. This mysterious object was discovered in October 2017 and is considered to be a piece of some bigger body formed outside the solar system and torn apart during its journey. Oumuamua, which means scout in Hawaiian, is an elongated body that resembles a big space cucumber, definitely something unseen before. It has non-gravitational acceleration, and no one actually knows how it moves since there are no visible tails or any outgassing signs. Tabby's star is sure among the most mysterious in the universe. It's 1,000 light-years away, 50% larger, and a lot hotter than the Sun. In 2015, scientists noted that Tabby's star's brightness would dim down by as much as 22%. Big clouds of dust could be guilty of that, but this star is too old to have something like that. It's still not clear what could be causing this massive dimming. Nebula are huge clouds of dust, gas, and plasma that never stop dishing out surprises. They can change and take almost any shape: a fried egg, a space head, a diamond ring. A red square nebula is one of the most fascinating space objects. There is no explanation of how and where it came from. It's just a glowing and almost perfectly symmetric box in the middle of nowhere. Around 210 light-years away from Earth, there's the constellation called Lyra. That's where the Kepler 37 system is. Kepler 37b is the smallest planet in it, with under 1/3 of the Earth's mass. It's just a little bit bigger than the Moon. Scientists believe this is an airless and rocky planet similar to Mercury. Moving to Sagittarius B2, one of the biggest molecular clouds of dust and gas in our galaxy. It's located around 25,000 light-years from Earth and close to the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Research has shown it contains more than 50 different molecules, and one is sugary stuff that tastes similar to raspberries. Discovering tasty planets. Space is getting better and better. Fermi bubbles are two mysterious gigantic blobs made of cosmic rays, gas, and dust found in 2010. They hang around the central black hole of our galaxy, one on either side. Bubbles expanded below and above our galaxy over time, so they're now around 50,000 light-years across. No one knows how they got there, but one theory says they're related to the same black holes that occurred about 6 million years ago. Gliese 436b is one of the strangest planets out there. It's extremely hot, yet made of ice. This is a Neptune-sized planet that needs just a little bit more than 2 days to finish a full orbit around its parent star. It's assumed its surface has a temperature that goes up to 830 degrees, but the ice still doesn't melt since the planet has enormous gravity. Black holes are not always supermassive. IGR rests in the constellation Scorpius and is only 3 to 10 times more massive than the Sun, which probably makes it the smallest black hole discovered so far. NGC 3842, on the other hand, is something we picture when someone mentions a black hole. It's in a different galaxy and about 2,500 times as strong and massive as the black hole in the center of the Milky Way. Venus, the planet of superlatives. The closest planet to Earth, the hottest surface, reflective clouds that make it the shiniest planet as seen from Earth, the biggest number, 1,600, of volcanoes when compared to other planets of our solar system. Also, we're talking about the slowest spinning body in our universe that barely rotates at all. It takes 243 Earth days for Venus to make one single turn. This planet is so slow, you could actually walk faster before it makes a complete turn. Venus goes in the opposite direction from Earth, which is why sunsets there are in the east while the sun rises on the west side. 55 Cancri E is about twice the Earth's size, with the temperatures of up to 4,900 degrees. Perfect conditions to turn carbon into diamonds. Yup, 1/3 of this planet is covered in carbon, which makes this diamond object one of the most expensive planets. Scientists who observe space changes in Antarctica see neutrinos at least once a month. Still, this one that struck our planet in 2017 was really special. It was the first one they could trace the origins of. They discovered it took 4 billion years for the neutrino to reach the Earth. It got to our planet from a massive black hole at the center of a galaxy that had been destroying all the matter surrounding it. Hey, welcome to the new neighborhood!